Hello, this is Engineer Dick Meehan, back again to discuss further my studies of the Diary DPM tailings project in the Diary Regency in Sumatra, Indonesia. I've been reviewing this project at the request of local people who are concerned about the safety of the tailings project. I've been reviewing it for about 2 years, and if you have seen my earlier video and written reports, you will know that I have been very critical of the project, first of all, because of the very high earthquake and rainfall hazard that exists at this site, and secondly, because I have suspected that the foundation for the proposed tailings project is not stable. Recently, the DPM has issued a new environmental impact report in which they re-explored the foundation area, and in fact, they did find unstable ground to a greater depth than even I had imagined. So in this short video, and in my recent May report, I am going to summarize why I think the foundation is unstable, and also I'd like to comment on a plan that DPM seems to be carrying out to attempt to stabilize the foundation. Let's cruise in our drone above this lovely valley, the Sopocomil Valley. The village of Sopocomil is on the lower right, and a rather busy construction project on a hill right behind the village. We'll come back to that construction later. I want to summarize the main results of my latest report and also add some comments on a scheme that is being implemented in the field to attempt to stabilize the foundation area of that tailings dam, which I've sketched in here and which they intend to build this year. The ground supporting that big orange waste site is now known and accepted by all parties as being unstable in its present state, all the more so in the case of a strong earthquake and rainfall that is certain to occur in this part of Sumatra in the future. Let's return for a second here to my earlier presentations, where I attempt to show how and why I am concerned about the safety of this tailings disposal project, a concern that takes me back to the 1960s when I was a student at Imperial College in the UK. That same year, a terrible accident occurred in the town of Aberfan, Wales, when a mining waste deposit liquefied and flowed down and killed many children in a school. This event attracted the professional attention of my professors at the university, and even brought a visit to the town by the Queen herself, who is said to have broken into tears at the sight. I continued to be exposed to these problems over the next half-century of my engineering career, and have shown recently how often tailings dams have failed, including this recent one in Brazil that made world headlines only 2 years ago. We can find in Indonesia as well another ground failure under very similar earthquake and high rainfall conditions, occurring at Pariaman in 2009 and killing more than 400 people. Mind you, this is a failure of the Toba Tough ash ground, same as at Sopocomil, without any tailings on top of it. You can imagine how much worse it would have been with millions of tons of wet tailings mud loaded on the top of the ground. But let's move on now to the tailings project as currently proposed by DPM. Now, the history of my criticism of this DPM tailings project is they have never been able to find a good foundation that would be stable in an earthquake to support that tailings dam, which they plan to build. In fact, seem to be building already, right above Sopocomil village, which, if history serves us, like other villages in the area, will within a few years become a busy town. I showed earlier that however well they build the retaining dam wall to hold the tailings, if the whole thing is on volcanic ash foundation that liquefies during one of the large earthquakes that will certainly occur here in the future, it will cause a sudden failure of the most dangerous sort. Now, for a long time, DPM has been claiming they have a lot of tests and soil borings in the general area of their proposed tailings dam that they apparently thought supported their siting decision. But they have never released any of the results of those borings and tests, which is an extraordinary lapse in itself, unacceptable to international standards of transparency. Do the secret tests show that the famous Toba Tough ash is stable and solid? We can doubt that because even Indonesian schoolgirls know about this ash. Here they are cleaning up a few inches of it from a volcano not far from the DPM site. They don't need secret laboratory tests to know that this soil, if it gets saturated with water, is going to be like quicksand. But we now know for certain from the latest revision of DPM's EIA that the proposed TSF is indeed underlain by unstable volcanic ash deposits, as I have claimed, to a depth even greater than I had imagined, 50 meters or more. They show exactly that in their revised EIA. Now, in the past few months, apparently DPM believes that it can engineer its way out of this problem by installing what are called stoned column drains throughout the area of the tailings dam. They appear not to have made any public announcements or discussed this proposal with anyone, including the local concerned people. But they are already beginning construction of a big project in the foundation area, possibly without any approval. They call it a test project. This is not the time for me to explain why I am completely skeptical as to whether this will solve or even significantly improve the stability of the TSF foundation. But just to take a broad look at what these drains are supposed to do and what they actually do, let's run through these 4 little sketches quickly. First of all, we have the expected large earthquake, which may persist for a minute or two and will surely liquefy any loose, sandy, wet soil such as we have in the Sopokamil Valley. Liquefaction is the technical term for something that most people are familiar with. If you stand on a beach or a riverbank with soft, sandy soil and move your feet around, you will start to sink into the soil. This is liquefaction. The soil loses its strength completely. Liquefied sand is sometimes called quicksand. So we have buildings falling over, people sinking into the ground, and even in this video, an entire town starting to move down a gentle slope at a very fast rate. After a few minutes of this liquid behavior, the soil will begin to form what are called sand boils, which accelerate the expulsion of water from the soil and eventually, sometimes after minutes or hours, cause the soil to reestablish its stability. By that time, of course, most of the damage is done. Here in this third slide, I'm showing the dream, putting rock drains which copy sand boils by allowing the water to bleed off during and after the earthquake. I say this is the dream because it doesn't work out that way. Here in this last image, I show what experiments have shown again and again. Rock drains can reduce the amount of settlement and speed up the restabilization process, but by that time, unacceptable damage has been done. For example, consider the fact that the entire tailing deposit is supposed to be underlain by a watertight plastic sheet, and now you have stone drains pushing up into the foundation of the dam. What will happen to that plastic membrane? So at the end of the day, what do we have here? We have a mine that produces millions of tons of waste tailings, which include likely toxic fluids and no safe place to put them. Every low area that might serve as a tailings pond is underlain here by volcanic ash, which is unstable and unsuitable to support the massive load of tailings, especially in this high earthquake country. In the old days, the miners could say, well, this is way out in the jungle or the Wild West, and nobody knows about it or cares, but we know that when people die, like those school children did at Aberfan and at Brumadinho, people do care, and nowadays they even charge the miners with murder. I leave it to the viewer to consider whether any reasonable regulatory body would accept a solution for which no documentation has been offered, and which, as a review of the engineering standards I've made, shows there is little reason to believe that it is even plausible. By undertaking this stone drain program, however, DPM has shown at last that they themselves know that the foundation is unstable in this entire area. Since unstable Toba tuff covers all of the low ground where you could dispose of 1 million or more tons of waste tailings that would be created by the DPM project, I do not believe it is reasonable or responsible for this project to continue.